started. Thank you for joining us today. We have a wonderful view of 927 and the Pkwy taxiway, so it's a little noisy, but we're going to make it work. Sounds like an air show. So my name is Heather Monty. I am a CFI. I am a educator. I have worked in education for about 20 years, and I'm very passionate about STEM education. And I always tell people, like, I have the T in STEM. So if you're not familiar with the STEM acronym, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm the technology piece of that. What I did in probably about 2017 was I was looking at, I'm very into emerging technologies, and drones are certainly a part of emerging technologies. And I was looking at the prices of drones and saw that they were coming down in price. And I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if we could get a drone that's right around the $100 price mark, that also has a software development kit with it, and then we can teach all sorts of different areas of STEM using drones. I thought that would be really cool. So, and I think it was 2016 or so, DJI released a Tello EDU drone. It was $99. They still have it. They've got a couple different releases of it now. And I thought, this is so awesome. So I thought I could combine my love of aviation, my love of teaching, and my love of STEM education, and try to help teachers learn how to use drones safely and effectively in their classroom. And so I started, it started out with just a Facebook group. I asked a couple of my pilot friends if they would be interested in helping to answer questions, help direct teachers in learning different rules, regulations, that kind of thing. So I started this Facebook group in 2017, I believe it was, and it's grown. We have about 500 members in over 7 countries of teachers, their parents, their STEM education advocates, their pilots, people who are really interested in helping to get young people interested in STEM careers through the use of drones. It's not necessarily to pursue a career in drone manufacturing or in flying drones or anything like that. The goal is to use drones as sort of that hook to get kids interested in science, technology, engineering, and math careers. So, how many of you were here last year at my presentation last year? Okay, good. All right, good. Okay, so I didn't want to repeat too much of what I presented last year because I wasn't certain how many repeat people we would get. So I'll talk about some of the things that I talked about last year as well. Last year we talked a little bit about like curriculum and ideas that you can use in the classroom, or if you are, maybe you're running an after-school program, or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, that kind of thing. Today what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about, first of all, just who Educators Who Drone is, and then how you can get involved. But then also, if you're interested in starting a drone program at your school, whether you're at a middle school, a high school, or even a community college, if you're interested in starting a drone program, some of the things that you gotta take into consideration. So just so I know who's in the room here, who here is a pilot, an aircraft pilot? Okay, who here is a UAS pilot? Okay, awesome. Who here works in a school? Awesome. Okay, who here is something I didn't list? And what are you?
I run the FAA STEM program.
The FAA what?
The FAA STEM program.
STEM program, awesome. Okay, thank you. And what about you? Somebody was back here. Oh, I thought somebody raised their hand. Okay. Yes. So, see that first one. You're fine.
I want you to learn how to best incorporate citizen scientists in the use of drones for research and development.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So today we'll do a very high level overview of just what you need to do if you're thinking about starting a drone program in your school. You have to remember that in our group we do have people in 7 different countries. So FAA rules don't always apply in their country. They may be in Canada. We have people in Australia. Today, what I'm going to do though is I'm really going to focus this out in the U.S. Do we have anybody in here outside of the U.S.? Okay, awesome. All right, let's get started. So again, a little bit about me. Like I said, I'm an educator. I always say I'm an educator first. The other pieces are that's the way that that's the mechanism for me to help students of all ages. I would say that I like to help people learn how to have a career that, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by that. I always like to help young people learn how they can get a career that they really enjoy but also pays well. And I think that, if we look at the workforce right now, we see in the tech space that is very high-paying careers for young people. It can change the trajectory of their families. If they've come from a family, I personally came from rural poverty. I grew up here in northern Wisconsin, and tech was sort of my way out of that. And so this is my way of giving back and helping young people to find these careers that they pay very well and they're fun. So drones. These are some principles that I've listed on our website. So we have a website, educatorswhodrone.com. I'll give you guys a tour of that at the end of this presentation. But these are some of the founding sort of principles for the group. And so drones can be used to teach the principles of flight and aerodynamics. So if you're a pilot, you had to learn all the different, you had to learn, Bernoulli's principle, you had to learn lift, weight, thrust, and drag, you had to learn all of these different things. And so these are topics that can be very easily incorporated into science standards that we use here in the U.S. So if you're teaching a science class, you can very easily bring drones into your science class, align those to your state science standards, you can align them to the national science standards, and through the use of just teaching about flight and aerodynamics. You don't even necessarily need a drone to teach those kinds of things. And maybe you've created a drone unit and you're teaching, a topic on Bernoulli's principle that certainly applies here as well. Drones are a fun and engaging way to learn about robotics and computer programming. Like I mentioned earlier, the Tello eView drone is a fantastic drone for teaching students computer programming. So there are some software packages that are out there that you can use. Some are free, some are paid, that you can use to teach computer programming, different programming languages, Python, JavaScript, Java, all sorts of different programming languages. But you can also teach robotics in the sense that the students can also build a drone. There's a website called hackster.io where hardware engineers, they put together all sorts of different projects related to anything you could ever imagine related to hardware, and drones certainly fall in there. So you can go on hackster.io and you can find these projects that hardware engineers have put together, and they've got links to go purchase everything. You can purchase everything right through your classroom, right through your students, and then you can teach students how to build a drone as well. Going back to programming, there's an app called DroneBots. And I do have a partnership with them, and they're a part of Educators Who Drone, and I highly recommend them. They're a great company. They are doing some really good things with helping students learn computer programming in the context of drones. One thing that I like about using drones to teach computer programming, when you look at the research that's out there about how young people learn computer science concepts, it's very difficult for them to conceptualize some of these abstract ideas that come with computer programming. When you are writing code, there's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes on a computer, and you can't always see that. It's very difficult to visualize that. It's very difficult for students where their brains aren't fully formed yet. It's very difficult for them to conceptualize it. So what drones do is you create a computer program that the drone then executes. And so when you've got an error in your code, the drone's going to not do what you expect it to do. So when the students, they write the computer program, they type in the lines of code, you give them the instruction to say, okay, you want to make the drone do, make a full square at, 10 feet of altitude. And they write that program, the students can very easily see where their errors were. The majority of the time when you write a computer program, the first time it's not going to be right. So the students are able to see where their errors happened, and then they can visualize that much easier. Okay? about weather patterns and how to read maps. So part of aviation, we have a lot of listeners here today. So part of aviation, those of you that are pilots, that you've been in aviation for a long time, know that obviously weather is a huge part of this industry. And so you can use drones to teach students about aviation weather. You can teach them how to read maps. You can teach them how to understand the different types of clouds. Maybe you're looking at the sky and saying, okay, these kind of clouds are forming, this is what might happen. So you can help them understand meteorology and some of these other aspects of the science part of STEM. And drones can help teach hands-on problem solving and critical thinking skills. So in engineering, design thinking is key to engineering education, helping students figure out how to solve problems. Today, we live in a world today where we're trying to help prepare students for jobs that don't yet exist. My undergraduate degree is in computer science. I got it in the 90s. It's obsolete at this point. The career that I'm in right now did not exist when I was going to school back in the 90s. All right, so we're living in this time where there's a lot of ambiguity and not knowing necessarily where things are going. So helping students to feel comfortable being uncomfortable helps them solve some of these problems. There's a lot of very significant problems in this world, very complex problems in this world, that we need people who are okay with looking at something and going, well, how can I solve this? There's not an answer for it. How can I help solve that? So drones can help really teach that ability to problem solve and those critical thinking skills. And I think when we talk about critical thinking skills, we think about like just taking a larger problem and breaking it down into smaller chunks. And I think like when we go back to talking about computer programming with drones, it's breaking things down into small, very, very small instructions for that drone to do. That is a very difficult skill for students to learn, and drones can be a great way to help them learn those important critical thinking skills. And drones are a great way to prepare students for careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think that's sort of the overarching theme of our group. So let's talk a little bit about starting a drone program. So the reason I wanted to take this theme, I guess, for this presentation is because when I have people come to me saying they want to start a drone program, they don't come to me saying they want to start a drone program at their school. They say, I want to teach drones. What's the best drone to use and what's the best curriculum to use? All right, and that is not the way to approach this. This is like if you're teaching a student how to use a piece of software, right? You have a computer and you're like, okay, I want to teach them how to do something. Well, what's the right software for me to teach students? Well, I don't know. What is it that you want to teach students? There's all sorts of different pieces of software to do all sorts of different things. So when we're talking about starting up a drone program, you want to think about what is the why? What is the reason that you want to start up that program? What is the vision for the program? So one very important question to ask yourself is, are drones the topic or are drones the tool that you're using? Okay? So are drones the educational technology tool that you're using to teach other concepts? So when you're developing a curriculum, you're putting together a program, are you teaching students about drone careers? Are you teaching them about careers in aviation? Are you teaching them about careers in other types of STEM fields? Or are you using that drone as a tool to teach other skills, like I talked about earlier, computer programming, aerodynamics, robotics, things like that? Okay, so you don't want to just say, okay, I'm going to start a drone program because it's cool. It's very easy to get sucked into that, that flashy factor. But really truly understand what it is that you want your drone program to do. What are those outcomes? What is it that you want students to know? The saying is know, do, or say, right? What do you want them to be able to do? Know, do, or say at the end of your program. Whether it's a 3-week program or a full year-long program, you have to be very clear what those outcomes are. Then you need to remember you are starting an aviation program. This is very important to understand. You are getting into this world of aviation in your school, and you want to make sure that you're following all the rules and regulations that are out there, okay? So if you're flying your drone outside, the FAA has jurisdiction. If you're flying your drone inside, your school principal and your insurance company has jurisdiction. So you want to make sure that you truly understand that you're of teachers will ask me if they need to get the Part 107 certificate, which if you're not familiar with the FAA Part 107 certificate is the small UAS remote pilot certificate. So that allows you to fly drones commercially, all right? And so what does that mean? What does it mean to fly commercially? I always like to tell people the rule of thumb is if it's not recreational, it's commercial, okay? So no money needs to exchange hands. There doesn't need to be a financial transaction for it to be commercial. If you are not flying recreationally, it becomes commercial. So if you are running your program outside and you are flying the drone yourself in your drone program, yes, you need your Part 107 cert, okay? If you're flying it inside, in your school gymnasium, in your auditorium, there's a lot of different things you need to take into consideration there, but you don't necessarily need that Part 107 cert. It certainly is great to have, but you don't necessarily need to have it, okay? Then also there is the trust certificate, which is that is used for recreational remote pilots here in the US anyways. So I know we don't have anybody here outside of the US, but there are, EASA, CASA, CAA, all these different aviation authorities in other countries. They also have their own remote pilot requirements in their countries. So just remember, you're starting an aviation program, understand the rules and regulations, and who has authority over your aviation program. If you are flying inside your school, what I would say is that you definitely want to check with your facilities manager, your principal. We have a principal right here. You want to check with your principal. What are some of the legal requirements, your insurance requirements, that kind of thing. But then even if you're flying outside as well, you still want to make sure that you have appropriate insurance in case students have an injury, there's damage to property, that kind of thing. So I'd say it's the kind of evolving regulations around drones. There's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of talk about some of the different regulations with drones. I have companies come to me asking for help. They're trying to do autonomous flight, things like that. Things that we haven't quite figured out how to do just yet, okay? So understand that the regulations around UAS drones it's constantly evolving, but it's happening. Sometimes rules and regulations, doesn't matter what industry you're in, rules and regulations sometimes are a little bit slower than the technology advances. So you have to understand that, because you understand what the rules and regulations are today, make sure that you are staying on top of any changes. The FAA does publish any sort of, if they publish notices that if rules are going to be changed, things like that, they do publish that, so you need to make sure that you stay on top of those things. And again, if you're outside of the US, you want to make sure that you're staying on top of whatever regulations are pertinent to your area of the world. All right, so you've decided that you want to start a drone program at your school, and you have figured out what your outcomes are. This is where you start investing in the tech. So, like I said, I'm a very big proponent for the Tello EDU drone. It's considered a toy drone, and there's a software development kit that comes with that. However, it is made by DJI. And there is some security concerns with some schools because they're on like a DoD base, Department of Defense base. The schools there can't necessarily use the DJI drones. So you want to make sure that you are following any sort of procurement rules or policies that your school may have around certain types of vendors that you might want to use for your drones. Safety considerations. So last year in my presentation, I talked, I'll add it here, I talked a little bit about how you can start a drone program inside of your school. So if you have decided that you're going to start a drone program in your auditorium, your school gymnasium, you want to make, a lot of times it's human nature just to kind of look around and say like what's on the floor, what's on the sides of the walls, that kind of thing. You want to make sure you look up. School gymnasiums have basketball nets, they have all sorts of different fun things for kids to swing on and climb on, that kind of thing. You want to make sure that you look up and make sure that there's not anything up there that is going to cause any sort of safety issues. You want to make sure, very simple that you have first aid kits available if something does happen. So you want to have a full sort of safety policy and procedure that you're going to follow and that you're going to teach your students how to follow as well. You want to build a culture of safety, and that goes for whether you are trying to protect your fingers from getting chopped off by a prop, or you are flying in a say you're flying in controlled airspace and it happens. Some people are like, well, I feel like I'm far enough away from the airport, it's okay. You don't want to sort of put that out to your students. You want to make sure that you are following all the rules and regulations, even if sometimes they might be frustrating for you. You want to make sure that you're really promoting that culture of safety in your drone program for your students, so that they then pass that on to other students. They'll see if something is going wrong. They will be a safety advocate for you because you really promoted that no matter what, you have to be safe. I talked a little bit about educational standards, and I know we have a few educators in here, so I'm sure you're familiar with these, but if you are not an educator, there are different standards that, if you are in K-12, you do need to align your curriculum to, and otherwise if it's like an after-school program or something like that, you don't necessarily have to align with specific standards, okay? If you want to get support, financial support, you want to get your leadership support, if you can align to national standards and your state standards, that's really, really, really going to help, okay? So NGSS, that's going to be your science, national science standards. Then we've got CSTA, which is the Computer Science Teachers Association standards. That's going to be all of your coding, programming, that kind of thing. IST is for technology education. And then we've got STEM.org, which they accredit different programs. So if you develop a program in your school, you can get that accredited by STEM.org. And then there's the Common Core standards. And what I have found is that if you can align to some of the Common Core standards, and there may be people here that disagree with this, but if you can align to like English language arts standards, if you can align to social studies standards, some of the core classes that students have in K-12, sometimes it's easier to get pushed through for funding and for getting support. And then for budget, so that's always the fun conversation is, how do we pay for this, okay? So some schools have, when these come to me for some help, they've come to me and said, I've got $2,500 to spend, what should I spend it on? Or some people are like, I have zero budget, how do I get started? So there are grants out there. I am working on creating a document of just different grant opportunities and different funding opportunities for you to get drones into your classroom, maybe for free or pretty cheap. While I'm here this week, I'm going around to all these different vendors trying to talk to people about their STEM programs, their K-12 STEM programs, so that my goal is to be the connector, so that if I don't have something that helps you, that I can connect you with some other organizations that have what it is that you're looking for. So, you obviously in the education world, we have to work with what we have, right? So when you're thinking about your budget, these are a couple things you want to think about. First of all, you got to buy the tech, you got to buy the drones. Curriculum, are you going to develop your own curriculum, or are you going to purchase existing curriculum? There's some curriculum out there, and then you can develop your own curriculum as well. Then you want to think about insurance. You want insurance for any equipment, any investment that you made in the tech. But then you also want, liability insurance, personal liability. I don't know if it's personal liability insurance, but you want to have insurance for if something happens to a student, if there's some sort of safety issue with a student. Then you want to put aside some money for licensing for the teacher. So that's going to include any sort of Part 107 training if you decide to do Part 107 cert. You have to pay for the training, then you have to pay for the actual exam itself. But then there are some organizations that do offer professional development opportunities for teachers that if they want to bring drones to their classroom, you can have a day-long sort of professional development workshop, and so that can be part of your budget as well. Extra props break, kids break things, that kind of stuff happens. You want to make sure that you have extra props. Extra controls, so you need to have something to control the drone with. Television drone specifically works on an app with your mobile device, so you need a mobile device to be able to control the drone. Others, they come with their own controls, so you want to make sure that you have some sort of device for the controls. You want to have extra batteries. Kids will use them, and I think kids, meaning, anybody, probably 22 and under, that's kind of the age I'm at right now. But if you're running these all day, every day, or if you're running them for a couple hours, you want to make sure that you have extra batteries so that you can just swap them out, because if the next student comes along and wants to be able to use them, you want to have those extra batteries. And then if you want to do any sort of flying activities, if you're going to do them inside or outside, you want to make sure that you have your PVC pipes, loops, hoops, that kind of stuff, that you can create a course, an obstacle course for your students. All right, and then I want to share a couple different resources. I'm going to go through, I just show you our website. I just started it, so it's a work in progress. But we have a website that just shows you where to find our Facebook group. I have an aviation YouTube channel that I've started to create some aviation education materials, that kind of thing. I'll show you that, and I'll show you these other things here. But upcoming, what I have is I want to start creating. I have a whole list of stuff. So we'll start creating some more Part 107 resources for teachers. I get a lot of questions about that. Build, Code, Fly, Certified. So that was my presentation that I gave here last year. And when I talk about building a specific drone curriculum, I talk about it in 4 different parts, okay? And it's Build, Code, Fly, Certified. So you can do 4 different things. There's more things you can do with the drone, but this is how I like to break it up. So build drones, you can run a whole class just on building drones and teaching students how to design them, how to find the parts, put them together, that kind of thing. Or like I said, you can go on Hackster.io and you can find all sorts of different projects there. Then you can teach students coding using drones. And like I said, one resource that I always recommend to everybody is get the Tello EDU drone and get a subscription to DroneBox. It's cheap, it's $5 a month. And you can go in there, you can learn how to use, like I said, Java, Python, JavaScript, a couple of, I think Ruby's on there as well. You can learn all these different programming languages using drones. Fly. So you can teach the students how to actually fly the drone, the hands-on components of flying the drones. And this is where you can create fun obstacle courses. In our group, we constantly have teachers sharing videos of some of the obstacle courses that they've created for their students to give other teachers ideas of what they can do. PVC pipes, hula hoops, all that good stuff will really help you there. And then certified. So you can also create a curriculum that helps the student get the certificate, the UAS certificate well, here in the US, but if you're in another country, you can get the certificate in that particular country. So when you're thinking about the curriculum, you've gotten that far and you're planning out your program, think about it in those 4 pillars. Is what is it that we want to teach? Are we teaching students how to build drones, code drones, fly them, or get the certification? Or are we going to do all 4? And there's a lot more that you can do with it. Professionally, I work in cybersecurity, and there's a ton of stuff that you can do to help students learn how to do cybersecurity. So I'm formulating some ideas there right now as well. I used to teach elementary school, and I have a whole ton of binders of aviation lesson plans that I've gathered over the years. So the reason I'm going to start typing those up, putting those together for our teachers. And the reason I'm doing that is because I had a couple teachers actually reach out to me. What they want to do is they want to get their basic ground instructor certificate so that they can teach students the private pilot written exam at the high school level. So we'll be starting to offer up some more aviation specific, more general aviation focused content. And so we'll be expanding to other areas. So let me show you around a little bit. All right. Okay, so this is our website. Like I said, I just started this. This is great. It's just to kind of show you exactly who we are, what it is that we do. We're a small but growing community of people from all sorts of countries. We've got links up here at the top. And then I've got links over here on the side. So we've got a YouTube channel. You can join our Facebook community. It's free. I've got some materials that I have created for our teachers. And some are free, some are paid, but they're very cheap. And then I've got some blog posts that I'm starting to write about drones and STEM education. And then I've also got a podcast that's also small but mighty called Discover Drones. So you can go to the Educators of Drones and see that there. One other thing that I did create that I've been talking to some people about this week is aviation maintenance. And so I'm a pilot, I'm not a maintainer, but I do believe that that is a pillar of aviation education that we need to get into K-12 education. And so I'm working with some people right now to try to get some access to their curriculum so I can see it, so I can recommend it if it works for those of you that are trying to teach maintenance. But what I did is put together this binder. And so when I think about like when I was, when you have your aircraft, you have a fixed wing aircraft, rotor wing, whatever, you have a binder that goes with it, okay? And or a logbook that goes with it. You've got your maintenance documents in there, oil changes, all that kind of stuff, right? So in this document here, I put this together to help teach students sort of the fundamentals of keeping track of your aircraft, in this case your UAS, and being prepared for preventative maintenance, that kind of thing. So you can put in there in that binder. I've got a video on the YouTube channel actually kind of going through the binder itself. Because I created my own, but you can put a copy of your own Part 107 certificate in there. If you need an airspace authorization for where you're flying, you can print that up and put that in the binder with you as well. You can create your pre-flight inspection checklist. If your aircraft doesn't come with it, you can create your own, and you can just put that in there so your students have it. Any insurance documents, you can put those in the binder as well, so you have it. This is something you can just take with you. If something happens, you've got your insurance information right there with you. You can put a copy of your drone registration in there in case somebody's asking you for it. I'd like to print up a copy. I'm a print person, like I said, I put all the stuff in a binder. But print up a copy of your operations manual, that way if you have any questions, you don't have to go on the website, try to download it, try to figure it out. You're out in the field somewhere and you're trying to figure something out, you've got a copy of it right there. Then you can also put a printed copy of a current VFR sectional so that you can make sure that you're, like I said, if you're out in the field somewhere and you've got questions, maybe you don't have cell service, you can't get on the phone, you've got a printed copy of a VFR sectional. And then drone maintenance logs. So you want to make sure, like with an aircraft, you log any sort of maintenance that you do with them, oil changes, that kind of stuff. Really in a drone, it's going to be, especially with the toy drones, it's going to be your prop and your battery. And so if you teach students, like let's track how many hours are on the prop. And you track it, and okay, like this prop is getting to, say 100 hours or whatever your operating manual says. This prop is getting to close to 100 hours, you probably need to switch it out. So you can start teaching students how to maintain the aircraft. Just by some simple things that way. Sorry, I'm not scrolling very well here. Drone warranty information, again, just have it right there. You buy stuff and you forget you have a warranty, so print it up and put it right in there. Then you've got a copy of your receipt, proof of purchase. And then the flight logs. So this is the flight logs for the drone, not necessarily for your students. So just like an aircraft, you log the hours on an aircraft, you can teach your students how to do the same thing with their drone. You create an Excel spreadsheet, throw it in the binder, and then every time somebody flies that particular drone, they put in there what was hours, what location, what was the notes, that kind of thing. You can include an illustrated parts breakdown. This goes back to a little bit with aviation maintenance and teaching students a little bit about the maintenance side of the aircraft. How to include an illustrated parts breakdown. You can teach them how to read that, how to go through that, understanding all the different parts of their UAS. Oh, and then I included a template there for people to create their own custom binder covers. So that is one way that helps students learn how just the maintenance of the drone, keeping track of your flights, tracking the number of hours on a prop, that kind of stuff. Okay? Then what I also did, I created this printable right here. It's a remote pilot flight logbook. You can get these. I mean, you can buy these for like $8 at 40s. But this is just a spreadsheet that I created for students to use so that they can log their own flight hours. So like I said, in the binders where you put the number of hours on the drone, but then let the students start creating their own remote pilot logbook as well. It's, like I said, very similar to what you would get at Sporty, something like that, but I made it very specific to using drones. So it's just some fun activities to keep students engaged and help them make them feel like they're part of the aviation community. I have to say, I'm originally from here, but I live in Arizona and I'm freezing right now. Okay, so every time I give a presentation, people always ask me for a copy of the PowerPoint. So if you go to that video right there and you can get a copy of the PowerPoint, you can send it to me. It puts you on my email list. I send out emails maybe once a month or so, but it'll get you on the email list, but it'll also get you a copy of this PowerPoint. Last year I did a presentation. It was very elaborate, but it was all very black. It was really difficult to see. So this year it's white and simple. It's much easier to see with the sunlight. So, and then I have another website, Electric Monarch Drone Aviation Education. I also am starting to put out some aviation-related content there. Educators Who Drone is very, very niche, very specific to teachers who are using drones in the classroom. So I'd like to open up for any questions. I talk really fast, so. Yes.
A lot of your conversation is built on, like, say, 8th and up. What about the other kids, like K6, K7?
Yeah, I think it's totally appropriate. I think just because I think a lot of the people in our group are focused on middle school, high school, and community college. The talent drone specifically, and I bring that one up because that's what I have the most experience with. I think they recommend that for use 5th grade and up, just because of the parts. But you can get like toy drones that are probably a little less harmful to use with younger students. But you can do all those same types of activities with them. Just make sure you find a drone that's specific to their age group, just because of the moving parts. But that's really what I would say would be the only difference there.
Running like commercially age verified drone insurance through your app. That's what we provide. Would that be something that we consider for education purposes? The verified drone insurance app?
Oh yeah, you can do that. Verified drone. You was asking about verified drone. You was asking about verified drones. Yeah, you can use that. But what I would say with insurance is check with your legal counsel and your principal, your school leadership. Start there. That's what I would say. Because they're going to want to make sure that covers everything that they're concerned about. Insurance is just, like I said, I work in cybersecurity, so it's all about managing risk. And so insurance is really you just transferring the risk over to somebody else. And so when legal counsel is looking at that, they want to make sure that all the risks that they're worried about are being transferred over to somebody else. So that's where I would start. So I'd like to invite you guys, if you want to join. We're, like I said, it's a free Facebook group. We share ideas, share projects that everybody's working on, that kind of thing. And like I said, it's starting up the website, podcast, that kind of thing. So I'd like to invite you guys to all join. Yes?
Maybe a little off topic.
Go for it.
Okay, so right now, as you know, almost anyone can teach individually to do a drone. People are getting going. You don't need to have every economic file. Government right has the activity. Yeah. The FAA does not require anyone to use So now we're thinking about that going forward. Now looking at how do we change
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so the question was, with drone, anybody can teach drones right now. It's not like maintenance or piloting. So anybody can teach drones right now. So the question was, do I have any insight into what the FAA is thinking? And no, I don't. But what I do know, I think like the Part 107 107 cert, those of you who haven't taken it, the Part 107 cert is to help make sure that remote pilots understand FAA regulations. It's not a practical exam of how to actually fly a drone. It's simply to make sure that because you're operating in airspace with manned aircraft, they want to make sure that you understand where you need to stay, what are the safety procedures you need to follow. That's what that exam is, okay? I think that eventually, yes, and I don't have any insight to what the FAA is thinking, but I think that yes, eventually there will need to become a point where we need to have some sort of, does there need to be some sort of a practical exam for becoming a remote pilot? Does there need to be some sort of exam to be able to teach this? Like you have with becoming a pilot, you get to CFI, right? I think at some point, once that technology gets there, absolutely we'll need to have some more standardization around who's teaching and who can teach. I think that, like if you're teaching anything, there's rules and regulations. Like you have to get licensed to teach in K-12. If you're teaching in higher education, there's certain credentials you need to have. I think that yes, teaching anything, you need to have certain credentials. All right, well, thank you everybody. I really appreciate you coming today. I would say like if you go to a presentation, you got one little piece of nugget, and I'm happy, so I hope you all got one little piece of nugget of information, and I'll stick around here for a little bit if anyone wants to chat more. Thank you.
Thank you.